What's up, guys? Welcome back to episode 6. In this episode, we're going to learn about function perimeters and return statements, both of which are pretty simple. So I think you guys should be able to get it. I'm going to go over it in the most simple way I can and show you guys two different examples. So let's get started. So first of all, we are going to disable the script from last time so it has no effect on what we're doing today. And then we're going to right click workspace, insert object, and insert another script. Going to get rid of the print hello world. And then we're going to go back to uh, our physical space here. We are going to actually create a second block. So for those who don't know keyboard shortcuts very well, what I'm doing is after I select something, I'm pressing Control and C at the same time, and it copies, and then Control V will paste it. So then I'm going to just move my parts over. Again, 3 is resizing, 2 is the arrows you're dragging around, and 4 is rotation. I know it's a lot of shortcuts at first to remember when you start working in a studio. So we are then going to name our second block block 2 so we can distinguish them in the code. Then we're going to go back into our code. We're going to first identify the block and block 2 as variables so we can just call them block and block 2. So block equals game dot workspace dot block, and then block 2 equals game dot workspace dot block 2. We are now going to create a function, and I will explain what the function does throughout the different steps of writing it. So first we're just going to make a function. So local function, we're going to name it change color. And then instead of telling it block or block 2 to change the color, we're just going to tell it part, and I'll explain why in a second. So part dot brick color equals brick color dot new, and then instead of putting a color, we're just going to put the word color. So the reason why we're doing this is so in the function, this is where the perimeters go in the name of the function, in the little brackets. I'm not sure why I can never remember what they're called. So we are going to put part, it may autofill it for you, but we're going to put part, comma, space, color. So the reason we're doing this is when you call the function, in the last function, I'm going to pull it up real quick. So as you can see, in the last function from the last episode, we had to call the block that we wanted to be changed. So the part we had to specify, we use block. And for the color, we had to type in the color in the function. But what if we wanted to use this function on numerous parts throughout the game and you might need it later? So you don't want to have to make a new function every time you want to change a different block. Well, that's what perimeters are for. So this allows us to say when we call the function, we can tell it what part we want it to affect instead of specifying it in the function. We can tell it later. And we can later tell it what color we want instead of having to tell it right now. That way, we could use the same function on as many parts as we want to, but only having to tell it what part and what color when we call the function instead of writing a new function every time. And the way you do that is you would call the function like you normally would and change color, but you're going to want to insert what you want to replace your perimeters with. So the first perimeter is part. So we tell it which part we want to call during this function call. So we're going to call the first block. And then we are going to tell it what color we want it to be replaced with. So we are going to do, we'll just go with really red this time. Now, when it calls the function, it will say, like the script will read it as change color, and then it goes into the function because change color is a function. And then it sees, okay, during this function, like this is the script saying, okay, I'm looking for a location to insert two different perimeters. So it goes down to the actual code inside of it, and it says part.brickcolor, and it's like, okay, well, here's the first perimeter that I'm supposed to replace with what they tell me. And it goes back to our calling and says, okay, well, their first perimeter, they're saying they want it replaced with the word block. And as we know, block is equal to game.workspace.block. But we're only telling the function this now. We didn't have to tell it later. And then it goes equals brickcolor.new, and then it sees color, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm supposed to be looking for color so I can insert the second option they give me. So then the script replaces the word color with what we give it, which is really red. So now the script now sees this as block.brickcolor equals brickcolor.new really red. Even though that's not what's in the function, we're now telling the script, put this in there and replace those two words with the two words we give it. So we're going to run this before we change the other block so you guys can see it one step at a time. So when we run it, you can see it turns into red. And what's really cool about this is that we can now do it again the same way, change color, but we're going to now do block 2. So the first time it changed, it went to the function and it replaced what we wanted with the two perimeters that we gave it. So now that's all over with. Now it continues on to the next line, which it's again calling the function, but now it's saying, okay, well, now I'm replacing those two perimeters with the new two options that I'm being given. So for color this time, we're going to do really blue. And so we're calling the same function twice, but each time we're telling it to replace the two perimeters with the two that we're giving it. So now we can press run, and you'll see that one turned red and one turned blue based on the same function. And that's why these are really awesome, because you can change them whenever you want without having to change the function itself or rewrite it a ton of times. So now moving on to return statements. So we're going to write a new function here. You can leave the first one if you want. It doesn't really matter because it's not going to affect what we're going to do now. We're going to make a function that will do math for us. And whenever we call this function, we only have to tell it what numbers to use. We don't have to tell it how to use the numbers. We just give it the numbers that we want it to use, and it uses whatever math we put inside the function. So we're going to make our function. And we're just going to call it do my math. Something simple like that. Usually I like to name the function that has, I like to give it some name that relates to what I'm having it do inside of itself. So we're going to make our parameters this time num1 and num2. You can make this anything you want. You could put alien and dinosaur, and it doesn't matter because all you're saying is replace the first one with the first option I give you and the second one with the second option I give you. What the parameter names are does not matter. Usually it's good to put them related to what you're going to be replacing them with, but it really doesn't matter. That's just for a easy mentality so you don't have to forget what you're doing kind of thing. So we are going to do result equals num1 plus num2. Oh, I'm sorry, it's local result because we don't want it to affect other scripts variables if we use result in more than one script doing different things. You have to always remember that. Even I forget sometimes. Nobody's perfect about that. So it's okay to forget, but when you notice it, just correct it. So we're going to show you first, if you just wanted to print what result was, As you can see, it will underline it for you. Well, let's run it anyway. Okay, see, it returns nil, or it printed nil, because it doesn't know what result is, because result inside the function. So it can't see what result outputted, which is why you use return. So return result. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I completely messed up here. It's pretty late, so my brain's a little jumbled right now. So it didn't work for two reasons. For one, the first reason I said, but also we are going to have to make a new variable because you have to insert the numbers that you want it to use. So we are going to do, let's see, we're just going to make a variable called the answer. And then the answer, we're going to do my math. So what you're doing here is making a variable, and when the variable is ran, the variable will run the function to get what the variable is equal to, because we're giving it a function as what the variable is equal to. So we're going to now insert, for num1, we'll do 5. And for num2, we'll do 7. So now we have a variable that is equal to whatever the function is run with the parameters 5 and 7. So now we can do print the answer. Now when we press run, you can see it gives us 12, and it ran the function with the two parameters that we gave it. Now you can change this in a lot of different ways. For example, a slash means division. So now we'll run it with division, and we'll change the parameters to 9, and we'll do 3. And if we run that, now it gives us the answer is 3. And just like doing the first option, what we can do is run it multiple times. So we'll make another variable called the answer to equals do my math, and we'll do 10 and 2, and then print the answer to. So we're running the same function twice, but we're using different parameters. So if I run, it'll now give us 3 and 5. So as you can see, we created two different functions today, and we ran each one more than one time using different parameters, and we're able to change multiple things with the same function, but in different ways. So I hope you guys learned a lot today. I hope it was helpful. Go down in the comments, go ahead and share the code that you created today. I encourage you guys to share between yourselves, which will give you better examples of how to learn more about these so you can see how other people do it and more that you can do with it. And if you have any questions at all, leave it in the comments. I'm happy to help answer any questions you guys have. And I hope you guys have a good one.